I know what's healthy, and like I try to eat not, stuff that's not processed, and as many different vegetables as I can, but I also don't stress about it if I'm going to eat a burger, like whatever.
Welcome to the Eat for Endurance podcast. My name is Claire Shorenstein, and I'm a registered dietitian in New York City. Today's athlete nutrition profile features Maggie Guterl, aka Maggatron, which is a very fitting trail nickname for someone who is most certainly a beast on the trails. Maggie and I connected through Tailwind Nutrition, as I am a Tailwind Trailblazer and she is the Athletes and Events Manager at Tailwind. She recently moved to Colorado from Pennsylvania, where she grew up, and she is an amazing, amazing athlete, and I can't wait to hear all about her nutrition and how it's evolved over time. Just a little background on Maggie. She grew up outside of Philly. She studied arts at the Pratt Institute. Her first marathon wasn't until 2009, and her first ultra was in 2011. And by the way, that first ultra, it wasn't a 50K as many people start off with. It was a 24-hour race, so she's pretty badass in my opinion. She finished 8th female in the 2016 Western States 100 miler. If you are not familiar with that race, that is a huge, huge, huge accomplishment, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say about it. She's also completed numerous 24-hour races. She recently attempted the very infamous Barkley Marathons, another thing I'm excited to talk to her about, as well as the Biggs Backyard Ultra. So lots to chat with for Maggie. I can't wait to go through all these exciting things that she's been up to. So please enjoy my interview with Maggie Guterl. Hey Maggie, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Hi Claire, thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about kind of, today's all about obviously nutrition and sport and all that good stuff. When you were younger, tell me a little bit about food and nutrition and athletics and kind of what that all looked like for you.
Growing up, my mom was super adamant about us eating healthy. And I mean, I think she had a pretty good handle on it, but healthy in the 80s is like different than healthy is now.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, we avoided sugar. She wasn't big on, we had cereal, but we were never allowed to have like, Cocoa Puffs or Fruity Pebbles or whatever. And so we had like Cheerios. She was big on drinking milk. So we drank a lot of milk.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really like it that much. So that was like a traumatic thing at dinner. I remember sitting at dinner having to finish my milk and just like trying to like not finish it. So the little, you're not getting up until you finish your broccoli type thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never heard that about milk. Usually it's vegetables.
Yeah, I don't know. Milk made me gag, but I don't know. It was fine in cereal, but if you drank it on your own, it was gross. I don't know. Yeah, but we ate a lot of vegetables, and I feel like we ate a lot of chicken. I feel like we'd always ask, "What's for dinner?" My mom would be like, "Chicken." We're like, "Ah, chicken again." I think she tried to give us like a balanced meal and stuff. So yeah, I think we ate pretty good growing up for sure.
And were you active as a kid?
Yeah. So I mean, we were always running around playing outside. We were lucky to have like this patch of woods behind our house that we played in all the time. And we had a bunch of neighborhood kids that we played with, that we played like baseball in different people's yards, or football or basketball, or like flashlight tag. We built a lot of different forts all in the woods. And yeah, we were constantly outside from like, after breakfast until the sunset.
Yeah. Was being active a very important part of your life, like all throughout growing up and into your teens and, kind of early adulthood? Or did you go through any periods of time where you weren't really active at all?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly was doing something or playing sports, especially in grade school.
Mm-hmm.
I had a limit of 2 sports per season because it was probably near impossible to take on more than two. So it was like fall was like soccer and I forget now, but there's volleyball and basketball in the winter, and then track in the spring and whatever, and then softball. So yeah, those are like the main sports I played. Yeah, I mean, I think I like basketball the best, but I always just like to do something. I don't know if it was like the activity or like the competition part that I like,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. I just liked being active mostly.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you have a bit of a different path compared to some of the other people I've profiled, only in that you attended art school, and it seems like you kind of found your way into this more elite level competition later in life. You didn't run your first marathon until 2009. Is that right?
Yeah.
And Ultra in 2011.
Yeah.
So what was kind of going on in between all of that? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I would say maybe freshman year of high school, I just decided I didn't have time for sports, and I was more interested in hanging out with friends and just being a little delinquent. Get your license, and you're like, oh, you think that's like the ultimate freedom, and we go down the Jersey Shore in the summer, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I didn't really have time for sports anymore, and it wasn't like an interest in. Yeah, so I feel like I was at track or cross country or whatever sport we ran in the spring of freshman year, and I quit. And my the coach had told me, and I like still remember this now. He's like, if you actually tried, you'd be really good. And I was like, no, screw that. And so I quit sports. And and then yeah, I went to an all girls Catholic high school. They had a lot of sports, but and extracurriculars were encouraged, but I don't know. I just was interested in doing what my friends were going to do, and I went to art school, and we really didn't have sports teams there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure our basketball team, the boys basketball team in our college, played the local high school. So it wasn't anything serious. So like even if I had wanted to be in like competition or like train for something, there wasn't really the opportunity there. Plus I was busy living. I went to school in New York, in Brooklyn, so we didn't really go to like dorm parties or frat parties or anything. We went out in like Manhattan and stuff. So it was kind of a different college life too.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely like fast life, like there's literally no downtime in college. Like you just do your work at the very last minute, even if it means not sleeping, because it shouldn't cut into your partying time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to go out Friday and Saturday and go to different clubs or whatever in New York. Yeah, but I did start kind of like running with my friend Leah. I think it was like junior year, sophomore or junior year. We would just decided we were going to run over like every few days over the Brooklyn Bridge and back. So we were doing that. I don't know how long that run was, but that became like our little regular thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I just started dabbling in running after freshman year, because like freshman 15,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where so we had this deal at the bodegas at our school, behind our school, and they had 2 for $3 St. Ides, for those 40-ounce malt liquor bottles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are pretty high in calories. So I started running after my freshman year when I went home for my summer job. I designed ads for this magazine that my mom worked at, which was pretty cool. And I worked with a lot of people who are older than me. But yeah, I started going to the gym after work every day and running on the treadmill. And I didn't even have proper shoes. I just thought, those like Saucony Jazz shoes.
Mm-hmm.
They're like fashion shoes. They're not running shoes, right? Like
Yeah.
they look like the old school running shoes, but they're really not.
I think it's the Saucony Originals, I think they're called, right? I am not sure.
Okay.
But I think I know what you're talking
Well,
about.
they had like different names. Yeah, but they all kind of look similar.
Yeah.
They're like now they have different lines, and they have the vegan ones and whatever. So I would run in those, and like I just like if I felt like running 10 miles that day, I would like I don't know, that was my limit, but I would just run until I didn't want to run on the treadmill anymore. And I would always like look at my heels and they'd be bleeding. I wouldn't even notice until like I was done, and I was like, oh, I'm this weirdo at the gym with like bloody heels.
Ultra runner in the making, bleeding heels, don't even notice.
Yeah, running on a treadmill.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then I kept doing that. That continued into the school year, because we did have a gym at our school, and yeah, and I would run on the treadmill like 5 to 10 miles every. I don't know what my schedule was. I just did it whenever.
And what was the role of nutrition throughout this whole time? Like if you're running 10 miles, or, I mean, did all of this running, as you started to kind of ramp up a little bit, did that affect what you ate or drank at all, or not really?
No, I didn't. I ate terrible. We had like a meal card, and every year I was like, yeah, I could get by with 2 meals a day. You could use your meal card in the cafeteria, and like everything they served was like really high calorie stuff. Like the best meal day I remember is like Mongolian barbecue day, when you could get all that, like whatever you wanted to stir fry with the noodles, and then the guy would make it up for you.
Uh-huh.
But I was definitely always out of meals by like the last semester or whatever. And, you'd be like, either starving or trying to like put together change to get food.
Got it.
But I ate terrible. A lot of ramen, a lot of like vegetarian chick patties or whatever those things are. Like, I don't know. It was terrible.
Were you vegetarian or no?
No, a lot of my friends were, and like roommate, like a lot of roommates I had. So that's just what we would get and what was available.
Okay.
Throw it in the microwave. It's better than like microwaving meat.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, how did you get from like, point A to point B where you're like, a college student, you're living this really unhealthy lifestyle and all this stuff. And then obviously now you're this amazing ultra runner and, sports kind of like your life. And obviously a lot of stuff has happened in between, but kind of connect the dots for me, like how you went from there to even to your first marathon and your first ultra.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, after college to, when I started getting serious about running is a long journey, but I was bartending after school, well, during school and then after, and, you're bartending in New York, you're making a pretty good amount of money. So I didn't really feel like I wanted to go get a job as an intern in art.
Yeah.
I majored in illustration. I went to do children's book illustration,
cool.
but like I knew it was going to be hard and I wasn't really driven and I was sort of just like over the whole, I don't know, it just wasn't as interesting to me anymore. And I think I had other interests and yeah, so I was bartending for a while and that lifestyle was just like basically breeds unhealthiness for like, you just never see, especially in New York, you just never see daylight because you're not done work until 4.
Yeah.
And then you have to go out and unwind. And by the time you go home, maybe it's daylight, but you go to sleep. And then you wake up to go to work at 4 p.m. the next day, and it's almost dark. If it's the winter, it's almost dark at 4 p.m.
Were you running during that time?
I would try to, yeah, periodically. I would once in a while. It was nothing regular. I do remember getting a pair of rollerblades when I lived in the Upper East Side, and I worked down in the Village, and I would rollerblade. I don't know. I have no idea. It was just like a thing for a while.
Yeah, that dates you a little bit, huh?
I was totally past the rollerblade craze. I mean, it was like 2003. I think rollerblades had lived their best days already, but
yeah.
I don't know, whatever. I guess people still rollerblade.
I definitely see people once in a while rollerblading on the East Side. So, kind of.
Yeah. We did play roller hockey when I was a kid. I remember that too.
Okay. Awesome.
I think that was like a thing. Is that still a thing? I don't know.
I think so. Yeah, I think it is. Definitely.
I guess if you don't have ice, you can do it. So eventually I was like, oh, I'll get out in New York and that'll like make my lifestyle much healthier and I'll be, I'll see daylight and I'll be much more encouraged to just slow down and chill out. And so I left New York and my brother came up to help me move and he had this house with like 4 bedrooms. And he's like, oh, I need another roommate. And I was like, perfect. I literally had what I had like a trash bag full of clothes and that was basically it.
Wow.
And he picked me up in the Dodge Intrepid and drove me to Philly and then I lived in Philly for like 10 years. So, and then I got a job bartending in Philly and bars there closed at 2. But I've just continued pretty much the same like lifestyles.
How old were you at this point?
When I moved from New York, I was like 24, 25. And then I think I stayed in Philly for a while, but that's where I decided to just quit bartending and quit drinking and, really, well, when I decided to train for our first 10 miler, first actual race with my friend Holly, I was still bartending and getting up hungover and trying to run training runs.
That makes it hard.
I don't know. It helps you like get the, suffering though, I guess.
That is true.
Like you're suffering before you start running. I don't know. Yeah, I would only run on the treadmill because I felt like embarrassed to run outside. Like everyone was looking at me, which is like such a weird thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I did most of my training for my first 10 miler on a treadmill. I started training in January for a race in May. Yeah. Which seems insane for like a 10 miler, but like, yeah, because we all just go run 10 milers now, right?
Like, sure. No biggie.
Like definitely, yeah, like I couldn't run a mile before I was like wheezing,
Yeah.
But then I did that and then eventually, like, I was like, okay, we're going to train for a marathon. My friend Holly was like, yeah, let's do the Philly Marathon in November.
Mm-hmm.
And this is 2008 at this point. And I didn't quite make it there. I just wasn't ready to like change my whole lifestyle and focus on running this marathon. And ended up just not running it. I think I signed up and just didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, I quit drinking. I quit the bar life,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I got a new job, and I was like, I'm going to train for this marathon again. So for 2009 Philly Marathon, I was like, all right, well, I think Boston qualifier is a good goal,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was like three. I don't know what it is now, but it was 340 at the time for me.
It was, because that was the same year I was trying to qualify. It was 340.
Yeah, and I was like, well, 330 will put me in a good cushion, for whatever. And I think that was the year that, like, by the time, usually, like, if you ran a November marathon, you could still register for Boston,
Yeah.
but it was basically sold out by the time I got to that race, so I knew that I was going to have to wait. But I did qualify around the 330, like, to the dot.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was like pretty stoked. I didn't know what I was doing, but I used one of those Hal Higdon plans, and I just did that. Like, I
Uh-huh.
picked the intermediate one because I thought that the beginner one was too easy. And then when I was done, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna run another one. That was a one and done. But then by the time I got home, I was like, what else can I run since Boston's closed?
Of course, right? Tell me about your nutrition for that race. What was, did you take like gels or sports drink?
I'm not sure. I think I probably did Gatorade. I didn't know what I was doing. Like,
Yeah.
I do remember my parents were there at like 17 or 18 miles, and they were handed me a bottle of Gatorade because I had said, give me this
Uh-huh.
at whatever. And then I just felt so nauseous, and I had like weird side stitches.
Yeah.
So I had to like kind of walk for a little bit, and I was, well, there goes my goal. And then eventually, like, I just felt stronger after 20 miles. So I was able to like pick it up. But Gatorade, I mean, that's just what they have. And I didn't know anything else.
So you didn't train with anything like when you were doing long runs on your own?
Actually, not really. I remember doing my first 17-mile run in like July or August or something. Like, of course, I gave myself plenty of time to train for this
Mm-hmm.
one too.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing like a lot of my first long runs in like the middle of summer in Philly.
Yeah.
And I had these, I didn't know what these pains were, but I had like insane pains in my calves and my hamstrings. And it was from dehydration and like lack of electrolytes. And these like group of guys ran up next to me, and they're running past me, and he's like, oh, and I was like screaming in pain. And they're like, you need electrolytes. And he gave me some sport beans. And I was like, oh, thanks. So I ate a couple of those and like drank some water, and then if I jogged, I felt okay. As soon as I stopped, I was in so much pain, so I just kind of like jogged home. And as soon as I got home, I was like doubled over, like curl up in a ball on my like apartment floor, just like yelling because it hurts so bad.
Pre-tailwind days, right?
But I didn't even know about like electrolytes, or like it never crossed my mind.
Sure.
All I did was like research like the whole running part of it. There's a little bit more when you get into obviously researching ultras. People talk about food a lot
Yeah.
and fueling, but not so much in marathons. Or I just didn't pay attention.
And there's definitely a lot of chat out there about nutrition and marathoning. Yeah, maybe you just weren't tuned into it quite yet.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. And there was actually a lot less on ultra running then too. Like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, you go on the internet now, there's like tons, but
Uh-huh.
like even just, what, 8, 9 years ago, there was like not much.
Well, running and ultra running have grown tremendously over the years, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
And yet you kept going despite being doubled over in pain and
Yeah. Well, I had to get home.
yeah.
But yeah.
And I think I read a quote from, when I was doing a little background research on you before today, I read a quote that you said, everything I love involves some sort of suffering. So there you go.
Yeah.
Case in point.
I know. Well, it makes the reward much better.
Yeah, that's very true. So, okay. So you had a couple years in between marathon and ultra. So talk to me a little bit about that. And also, like, what about your everyday diet? So you quit drinking, bartending, you were starting to kind of live this healthier lifestyle, getting into the sport. What did everything look like at this point?
Yeah, well, I either do something or I don't do it. So I think I started eating like insanely healthy, like a lot of, making my own food, because before I didn't make any of my own food, a lot of making my own food, cooking like fresh vegetables, eating a lot of like just non-processed stuff. Also going to the gym regularly. I started climbing at the climbing gym, and I would ride my bike everywhere. So I didn't have a car in Philly anyway, because I didn't really need it. So I just bike all over. I was doing yoga, like everything. So I was in pretty good shape.
Mm-hmm.
And my body was like, what the hell? Just because like that's a serious overhaul. Yeah, I think I just got really into the health, like nutrition, active fitness, everything. And I ended up working at a gym in Philly too. And I think I applied for front desk and they were like, oh, you can be a trainer. And I was like, I don't know anything about that. And they're like, do you work out?
That's scary.
It is scary. I know, right? So I was like, okay, whatever. Yeah. Well, you don't realize what a money suck it is until you start like,
Yeah.
getting into it. So you have to really love it and be passionate about that whole realm before you like, I mean, it's just so many certification. You're going to work for like 5 years, you'll work your butt off before you make any money being a trainer.
Yeah.
So like, I respect the people who can make a living out of it and who are really passionate about it and just want to learn. There's a lot of things I was interested in and I learned a lot, but eventually I was like, this is just a lot of hustling and like a lot of BS, and a lot of people just don't know what they're doing. And it's like,
Yeah.
I really want to go to school for this or not do it at all. Like not just this, like, so I ended up working in a real estate office for this guy, Ed Paul, that's awesome. And like that was a fun time. And I got to run a lot. And he was very like, lenient and flexible with my schedule. So I could do, take off the races when I wanted to. So I did a lot. I was doing a lot of races in 2013.
Oh, so this is as you got into ultras and stuff.
Yeah, I guess I skipped over really getting into the ultras.
And one of the things that's also amazing is like, a lot of people get into ultras by like they do the marathon, then they do the 50K, then they do 50 mile. And
Yeah.
I raised my hand because I am definitely that person. And then I did JFK and I was like, I'm done. That's my max, but which was awesome. But but you just jumped right into a 24-hour with a goal of, was it like 100 miles? Was that the one that you said you had a 100-mile goal? I mean, talk about it's like all or nothing. You were just going for it. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I would have done it a year earlier, but I didn't have any ultra running friends. I didn't know any really.
Got it.
And I climbed with a friend. He's a climbing friend, and we ran, but we ran, like pretty fast at 6 miles, and maybe 10 miles was the max that we ran together. But he told me not to sign up for an ultra, that he knew a friend that did it and that like his friend can't run anymore. And so like I was like, oh, better not. And I looked at the internet again and it was like, yeah, don't, like just what you said, don't run. You should be running marathons for this amount of years, and then you should run a 50K and then 50 miler and all that, whatever.
And you were like, F that, I'm going to do it.
The 15-minute mile pace, how hard can it be?
Oh, God.
Yeah, and I had FOMO just running, because I would run in the evening and I would see this race going on in July, like the 20 and 24, the back on my feet one, in Philly around the 8-mile loop that they have there. And I was like, man, I want to do this. So I signed up for the midnight race one year, and it was just one loop at midnight, and that was super fun. And I see these people, and like they look miserable, and some of them are like, I was like, oh, this looks great. And so like 2011, I finally like signed up. Yeah, and I made 100 miles my goal. It seemed like doable. And again, I was like, okay, I got to figure out nutrition. So my friend Lauren from grade school and high school, I knew that her husband was an ultra runner. So she hooked me up with him. So I chatted with him and I just picked his brain about what he does and like, how he fuels. And I know he said eat early, eat often. Well, yeah, he explained a lot of things, but for some reason that stuck with me. But I took it super literally. So I feel like I didn't really like figure out like, oh, you need to space them out because you can't just overload your body with a bunch of sugar all at once.
Yeah.
Especially when it's like 90 degrees and 95% humidity,
Yeah.
So I was pretty sick in the first marathon worth of loops, like 3 loops, and I was just puking my guts out.
Oh, no.
And that just continued for like, I don't know, 10, 12 hours. But I had a lot of friends there that like none of them were really runners. Well, my own friend Katie, she signed up with me. So she was doing her thing. We had our like own camp. yeah, so they were just trying to feed me different things to see if that would work and I could hold it down.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, you know how like night sometimes cools off and helps you recover. Like
Yeah.
I got a second wind and I was able to like run pretty fast relatively
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make 97 miles by the end.
That's amazing for the first ultra. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I learned a lot and I realized like, oh, 100 miles is definitely doable,
Yeah.
but obviously I have a lot to work on.
What was your longest training run for that race?
To be honest, I feel like we did like 40 miles, and I don't know if I'm remembering my timelines right, but I did it because I did that race 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
I think I did do a 40-mile run, 30 or 40, I forget. We did a bunch of loops on the where the course was. I know the year after I just did a 50 miler on that loops. It was like a unofficial, you know, like a fat ass race where you just show up. And there was a 50 miler in April. So I did that as a training run leading into the second year that I did it.
And what products were you using at this stage? Or foods, or what were you doing?
God, I don't even remember. I feel like I was using Cytomax. I do think I was introduced to goo at that time.
Uh-huh.
I do remember having gel.
Okay.
I think I was trying to like also train with a lot of real food because people said, "Oh, you got for distances this long, you have to eat real food,"
Yeah.
and I just can't tolerate real food. So, but that's what I was doing, and it was just I don't know, nausea. I thought was just part of it. You know, like every race.
Wait, you can't tolerate real food now, or just back then?
Really ever. Yeah. I mean, I can do little bits of actual food depending on what they are during races, but
Mm-hmm.
no, I don't mess with real food
Okay.
unless it's like a race like Bigs.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, I mean, along those lines, why don't you talk to me a little bit about kind of training race nutrition kind of now and how that has evolved and what's kind of been working for you in more recent races. So obviously you did this race, you've done a number of 24-hour races. At some point, you know, your training, your racing, everything got really elevated. You made it to Western States in 2016 and placed eighth, which is amazing. And you've done all these incredible things since then. Yeah, why don't you talk to me a little bit about kind of, especially from the nutrition standpoint, like what's been going on there in the years since that first ultra?
Let's see, like the first race I successfully did without throwing up, I just toned the pace way down.
Mm-hmm.
Was Rocky Raccoon in 2013,
Mm-hmm.
I think, or maybe 2014. And that's when I met my coach, Michelle Yates, who really helped work with me on nutrition and figuring out why I throw up all the time.
And what did she have to say about that?
Well, a lot of it too was like, yeah, I was eating healthy, but like there's certain things you kind of just want to like fine tune because if you're eating right while you're training, I think your stomach's going to be much more correct
Mm-hmm.
when you go into the race. And you know, she gave me a lot of different options. She didn't say like, "Hey, this is going to work for you," whatever, whatever. But she gave me the idea of, you know, you consume a few calories at a time. Even if you're going to take a gel, take half of it at a time instead of overloading your body with 100 calories.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I started training with her. But then, you know, I started kind of experimenting and making sure I was getting enough calories. And I found that, you know, drinking them obviously is just much easier for my body.
Yeah.
And actually, the first one of my best races and like the first race where I relied mostly on like liquid nutrition was Georgia Death Race, and I used mostly Tailwind.
Mm-hmm.
I still thought I had to have some real food here and there, so like there's only two spots where you can see your crew anyway, so I think I had some noodles or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like mostly Tailwind, you know. I was still doing like a couple gels, but like just as backup if you don't have any like way to mix anything up or whatever, you know, just so you don't bonk.
And that was a good race for you. You placed second in that race, is that right?
Yeah, that's how I got into Western States.
Yeah, that's right.
So
That's
then
right.
I did the same thing at Western States, like mostly liquid. I did at Forest Hill discover avocado rice balls, which are the most amazing thing ever.
You know, I read that somewhere else and I was like, avocado rice balls.
Yeah,
Every aid, like I haven't seen those at aid stations I've been
right?
to. What aid station is that?
Well,
It's
the second
amazing.
year I ran
I
it,
want one.
yeah, like it was like sticky rice and mixed in with avocado, and like
Yum.
yeah, and they were salty too. And I remember getting there the second year, and I was just like, oh, where are these? And they're like, we don't have any made. We're out. And we can make some more, but it'll be a while.
Oh,
Like,
no.
oh my God.
Oh,
But yeah, like
that's demoralizing.
the word is out. But yeah, I mean, mostly I look back and most of the races where I haven't puked my guts out have been when I've used mostly like Tailwind.
So when did you start using Tailwind? So that was 2013, you said?
It was about probably 2014 or maybe the beginning of 2015.
Got it.
Yeah.
And of course, you now work for Tailwind.
Yeah.
And you just moved to Colorado, right?
Yeah. Well, so I was introduced to Tailwind through Rob Goyen from Trail Racing over Texas. I was from Pennsylvania, but on this Trail Racing over Texas team. But that was like an awesome team, and Rob got us all kinds of different sponsors, and Tailwind was one of them. And that was, we got this whole supply of Tailwind, and I was like, oh, stuff tastes like really good, and I started using it, and I was like, all right. I'd like to say that I just used Tailwind from there on out, but I didn't. I kept experimenting with different things. So like looking back, I can see like where, I remember, oh, I threw up in this race. Oh, I was using like whatever.
Not Tailwind.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny. And then I used to work for Nathan Sports, and then we parted ways, and I was like, well, I really want to stay in this industry and work with a brand that I use, which is like, okay. You're like, and a lot of the brands like, they're in California, and I was like, I didn't want to move there because that's where Nathan relocated to. And my friend Sable was like, oh, they're hiring at Tailwind. So I started talking to them because I was like, oh my God, that would be amazing. Like, I love Tailwind, and it's in Colorado.
Perfect.
Yeah. So now I live here in Durango.
Yeah. I think the last time we talked on the phone, which was right when I joined the Trailblazer team, you were preparing for that move. And it looks like you've been having an amazing time just from all your Instagram photos. It's like gorgeous.
It is. It's like being on vacation all the time, but with a 5-day work week in the middle.
Yeah. But I see some, team runs in there and stuff. They seem very supportive of your active lifestyle. So, I mean, they would have to be, right?
Yeah, everyone at Tailwind does something. There's a lot of bikers, a couple runners, people do CrossFit. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just like Durango lifestyle, not even just Tailwind.
Sure.
But yeah, it's a great company. It's really small, so like, you know everyone pretty well.
And you're the athletes and events manager. So obviously you work with the Trailblazer team, and I guess you work with sponsored athletes as well. And kind of what kind of other stuff do you do there?
Yeah, events is a big part of it. We go to a lot of events. We go to a lot of mountain bike events. I was in Crested Butte last weekend for this demo bike event called Outer Bike. So there's a lot of travel involved, but it's tiring. But you get the opportunity to run in different places, really awesome places like Crested Butte. You just have to budget your time so that you get up super early, and you're like, it's great training though, because you stand on your feet all day. And
yeah, there you go. Time on feet.
Yeah, I'm more tired after a 3-day weekend event than like if you put in like say an 80-mile weekend.
Yeah, and so you're on the road pretty regularly then, between racing and work and fun trips and all that kind of stuff. How does kind of food play into all this? Do you bring snacks? Do you kind of just find stuff on the go? Are you guys staying in hotels? Are you able to cook? Like, what does that all look like, or it varies?
Yeah, it varies. I tried as hard as I can. Like I went on this 3-week road trip. I started out at Bighorn 100 in June, which I wasn't trained to run. But I did anyway.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I just haven't had the quality that I wanted to, and it's been hard to get like actual volume.
Yeah.
Just because moving altitude, you just can't I can't do what I was doing in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
It took a transition.
Yeah. So are you still transitioning to that?
I think I'm pretty acclimated and getting used to it in more of a groove than before. I think it'll take more time to finally figure out a really good routine, but especially the travel just throws it off all the time. So it's just kind of like, instead of get frustrated, I just take it week by week, and I'm like, okay, this is what I can do this week, and if I can't get everything in that I want, then whatever. Yeah, like eating on the road isn't always the greatest, but you try to plan ahead as much as possible, and bring nuts and fruit, things that are easy to snack on while you're driving or like at an event. And then the meals or whatever, usually you're so hungry by the time you get to eat dinner, you're just like, okay, pizza. But that's fine, because you are I usually run something pretty decent in the morning. I move around all day and I'm talking to people and you like, you know, whatever. And then at dinner time, like you get your first like good sit down meal. So, and then during the week I try to like bring salads to work or whatever. It's not perfect, but I really like used to stress about it and like scrutinize everything I ate. And, it's just, I don't have time for that. It's so stressful.
When was that?
When I first started training with Michelle, I was like, I have to be so like on point. I can't do, like I read that Dean Karnazes doesn't even eat birthday cake on his kid's birthday. And I was like, oh, I can't even.
I think I read that too.
Yeah, I'm like, well, good for him, but he seems like a really disciplined guy. Yeah, but that's his thing. And like,
Yeah.
I like cake. I don't know.
Didn't he also get pizza delivered to like wherever he was running though? Like, wasn't that also his thing?
Right. And like we've already talked about, I can't tolerate food during running, so I'm gonna eat pizza when I'm done running.
Yeah, there you go.
I know what's healthy, and like I try to eat not, stuff that's not processed, and as many different vegetables as I can, but I also don't stress about it if I'm going to eat a burger, like whatever.
Okay. So you aren't following any particular type of diet. It sounds like you're just kind of eating what tastes good and trying to get some plant foods in. And I guess it sounds like you eat some meat sometimes too.
I wasn't like strict vegetarian or vegan or anything, but I went like mostly plant-based for a while, and I just was like, I ended up having to take the liquid iron, the Flora iron, whatever, to get back to it was terrible. I felt so tired, and like now my coach is like, yeah, you need to eat some like red meat once in a while, and so I do that. I think it's just everything in balance and moderation, which is like not really in my vocabulary.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. And what kind of motivated you to go plant-based, just out of curiosity? Was it just like because so many people were doing that? Was it, health? Was, what kind of motivated you?
Well, all the stuff that's in meat, and then just the fact that like there's a lot of different reasons too. I felt like, well, I definitely feel bad for how the animals are treated.
Yeah.
I don't know, at the same time, I'm like, oh, maybe if I don't go and kill this animal myself, I shouldn't be eating it. And I just had to start eating some meat again. I don't know. Maybe I'll get to a point where I can go all plant-based.
Yeah, it definitely can be done. It just takes a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
And you have to be very, very mindful about the kinds of things you're taking in, and obviously your own personal tolerances. I've definitely worked with people who are full vegan, but they don't eat like beans and legumes. And I'm like, that's tricky.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah,
I don't want you eating just junk. So, you certainly, in order to do it successfully, it's more helpful if you're eating all things. But in terms of within the vegan diet. Let's backtrack for a little bit. I want to hear about, after Georgia Death Race, so you did Western States, which for anyone listening who doesn't know this race, it is like basically the 100-miler that everyone tries to go do. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And that's the one you placed 8th in, which is awesome.
Well, compared to like Boston.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically the Boston of ultras. One of the things with ultras that's always very fascinating for me in particular is just the logistics of it. It's one thing in a marathon where it's like, oh, you have to carry nutrition for 3-4 hours or whatever. And, you have all these aid stations every mile. Ultra often it's in remote locations. Every race is different. You have crews, maybe you don't have crews, maybe you have a drop bag. It varies so much. And of course, we're not talking 2 to 5, 6 hours. We're talking potentially more than 20 or 30 hours. So sleep deprivation, tolerance, there's just like so much involved. So I'd love to hear your perspective on some of the races you've done, Western States, Barkley's, Biggs, Backyard Ultra, just to name a few, and kind of like how you managed planning, training for those events and executing those events from a nutrition standpoint.
Training for Western States, you basically just come off Georgia Death Race training. You rest a little bit. So I was in pretty good shape, and I was like probably eating the best of that I've ever eaten, just like being super careful. Like I barely ate any like processed carbs. I don't even think I ate bread at that point.
Why is that, out of curiosity?
Just like from stuff my coach suggested, and
Okay.
I was following her meal plan really strictly. She also has like a lot of dietary restrictions herself. Just like she like thyroid issues and different intolerances to different foods. She just always suggests different things. And I just tried it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wasn't eating like, I don't know, no pasta or bread or anything. And I went from Georgia Death Race, you recover a little bit and then you begin to train again because it's at the end of March. So you have like a couple weeks in April to take it easy. And then, by end of April into May, you're like full swing into training again. And I gave it everything. Like I was up early before the sunrise every day to go train at Valley Forge and do different workouts and then go to work and then run after work and do all the strength work and whatever. Yeah. So that's like, I don't know, power to people who can have this, like, maintain this for years, this level of training and a full-time job.
And a family for some of them. It's crazy.
Right. Well, that even more, I don't even know how you guys do it. So, but the race went really well. And I was like super stoked to be running this course that like you read about and like you're running up this hill with these like amazing athletes and this like looking at these scenes in person that you've seen in pictures and like the history of the race. And the course is beautiful. Like people would be like, oh, the course is whatever. It's kind of boring. I mean, not everyone said that, but I've heard a couple people say that. And I was like, that's not boring or ugly at all. It's like amazing.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's a net downhill race, but it's a pretty hard course. But, just not known to be one of the most difficult courses out there. I think it's just challenging for its own reasons. Like it gets hot, competition's high, so there's a lot on the line,
Yeah.
But it was a really great race. I had like a bunch of people supporting me, but sleep deprivation is not really too much of an issue there. I mean, I didn't even run through the night the first year. So, and like from my experience in 24 hours, I knew what it was like to be awake for a whole night. Like it's not that hard anymore. Yeah, you get sleepy, but like one night's nothing, to be honest.
Is it harder to fuel when you're sleepy like that or sleep deprived? Is it hard to kind of just get the nutrition in?
I think you maybe sometimes forget to fuel as consistently. So sometimes that helps just if you're really tired to kind of remember, oh, maybe I haven't had any like sugar in a while.
Yeah. Are you using caffeine at all?
Yeah, I will sometimes. Yeah, I do. Well, that was my big downfall at Biggs is I started caffeine way too early. Even in my first time at Barkley, it was really just one night. We were out there for like 30 something hours, but like it started at a nice pushy time of like 9 something. This is 2 years ago. So you go through the first night, and you're definitely very tired the next day because like we were moving pretty slowly and I was just like yawning a lot and I was out of caffeine. But like, so Biggs was the first time I really went into a second night, actual night in a race ever.
Yeah.
And I had not gotten a good night's sleep before the race because I stayed in this really crappy hotel and it was loud. There's a lot going on, so I was constantly awake. I couldn't fall asleep. And as soon as I did, some door would bang or people would yell in the hallway. So I was like freaking out in the morning, just trying to like be like, all right, it's not a big deal. Don't think about it. Don't think how tired you are during the race. Like, just you got a great night's sleep. Just tell yourself that. But the first night, I was like, all right, I'll start caffeine because I'm just tired.
Yeah.
So I started caffeine the first night, and like any trying to nap at all, I just saw these like black and white 50s cartoons playing in my head. So like I never slept.
I just want to interject for 1 minute just because some listeners may not know what Biggs Backyard Ultra is. It's a last man standing type race where it's 4 miles on the hour every hour, right?
Yep. So you have to do whatever you want when you're done, but you got to be back in that corral when the next hour starts or you're out.
So it's pretty hardcore.
Yeah. So you do have time to nap, but like only like 5 minutes or so.
Wow.
Yeah, so the second night was really hard. I couldn't keep my eyes open. I couldn't run in a straight line. And caffeine wasn't working. And it was just really rough. And then your body, like my right hip was starting to bother me. I don't know. It's just like a little downward spiral.
So was this a tailwind, like predominantly tailwind type of nutrition race? Or were you doing any real food in there just because it was so long?
Yeah, my main fuel was tailwind. I was peeing a lot. So some laps I would switch it up and just go to water or try not to drink at all and then try to eat real food in between. And I actually was really hungry for that race, which is usually I'm not. I think it's the slow pace and you just keep stopping and then you feel like you're so hungry.
Yeah.
And no, I was never nauseous or anything. I think my nutrition was on point. Like for usually like a race, I'm like, okay, I got to tweak this or that, but this is the nutrition, I'm going to do the same thing, I think.
Are you doing the race again?
Yeah. That's October 19th.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Stay in a better hotel.
Yeah, stay in a better hotel. How far did you make it in the race?
183 miles. So that was like 44 hours.
Wow.
A little bummed I didn't make it to 200 miles, but like, yeah.
Have you done 200 before?
No. Yeah, I wish I had got there.
So this is your longest race so far?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we'll see. Hopefully October 19th. Whenever it's over, that will be my longest race.
Well, I'll definitely keep an eye out. So, and in terms of Western, for the first one you did, now that was also, I think I saw somewhere that you use endurance tap gels. Tell me a little bit about that. I've actually never tried those, and they sound delicious. Maple syrup, salt, and ginger. Yum.
Yeah. They're a Canadian company, and those are like my two main things I was using, the last like couple of years. It's just like you said, Canadian maple syrup, sea salt, and ginger, and they have this little screw top.
Oh, nice.
So I'll bring those a lot with me as backup too, because like I'll try to do tailwind, but like different races, it depends on the setup. So like if I'm not able to access like a bunch of different, water, or like I can't carry tailwind with me, like, or there's only some water I can grab at different points, then I can do the gel, the endurance tap. I don't even want to call it a gel. It's not. It's just maple syrup.
Yeah.
But it's great too because you can put the little cap back on it, so you could just do like a little like sugar shot.
Yeah.
It's like mainly like why I like the tailwind and just sipping it is because it keeps a steady energy flow. And so like endurance tap is like my little emergency backup and stuff, and it works pretty well. So yeah, like once in a while at Bigs, if I wanted to just take a break from tailwind, I would take water with me and then just always carry the gel, just because like you don't want to ever get the hole there. So like at least I had the endurance tap with me, like I could just like take a little shot.
Yeah. Do you have a plan in place when it comes to nutrition? Like, are you thinking to yourself, okay, I need to get this number of calories or this number of carbs or anything like that, per 30 minutes per hour or whatever? Are you doing like the 200 calories of tailwind an hour, that whole thing? Or are you just kind of going by feel, or what's your approach there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a general rule of thumb. Yeah, I try to do that. And yeah, I'm pretty good at drinking. So like I'll just take sips as I go, and usually works out too about that. I notice I drink a lot less here. At first I drank a lot more because it was so dry, but whereas on the East Coast, I could easily be done a 20-ounce bottle in like less than an hour for sure. I guess if I do another 100-miler, I would have to kind of like keep an eye on that so I make sure I am getting enough calories. Yeah, it usually works out pretty good. Like and I'll also like have a goal of by the time you get to this aid station, you should have finished this amount of liquid or something.
Got it.
And that usually works out.
And at Barkley, what was nutrition like for that? Because you're carrying everything you need for each loop, or how is that working?
Yeah. Well, Barkley, I screwed up and I mixed this like really concentrated thing of tailwind, and I put that in my bladder, and I was like, oh, it'll be all right. But I think it was too concentrated. So I screwed it up. And it's funny ironic because I work for their tailwind.
Did it mess with your stomach, or what was the issue?
No, I think, I don't know. I had a lot of other issues going on. Like you said, I was getting ready to move to Durango. I was training for Barkley, and I just started this new job. So my body was just like exhausted. But yeah, I just felt like super off. And like, I think my electrolytes were all screwed up. But my plan was to just sip, when I could. And from the, like, just mostly tailwind, obviously, like, I had a filter for getting water along the way. And I ended up being so extremely thirsty. Every stream I was getting water and just, drinking it through my Catadine filter. And so that's how I know my electrolytes. I was just like extreme thirst.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, okay, I'll do that and just take little sips of the bladder. Yeah, and then I had the plan. There's a couple water stops. So like by the time I got to the top of Rat Jaw, there's a tower there and you can get water. And I had a couple of stick packs that I was dumping into my bladder to even out the tailwind. At that point, I was already like way behind my goal. But it was really just pure exhaustion. I didn't get the amount of climbing in that I wanted.
Were you doing real food? Like, were you doing bars or gels or anything like that, or no?
I brought some like honey stinger waffles with me and some honey stinger chews, and I also had those little endurance taps. But my goal was to do mostly tailwind.
Okay.
Obviously, with the amount of climbing there, it's good to take in some things, but
Yeah.
it was hot, so my plan was just, it was hot for that first day when in April when everyone's been in the winter and like it's finally like 70 something degrees. It feels your body's like in shock.
Yeah.
So my goal was to stick with liquids. It was just bad from the start. So I mean,
Yeah.
there's just so many factors, but that's okay. Hopefully, I'll get another shot. I'm trying to like do well at bigs. I'd like to win.
Uh-huh.
You have to go into the race with a goal of not stopping
Yeah.
for anything.
Yeah.
If you want to have like any shot, that the winner of Big's backyard gets an entry to Barkley.
Oh yeah, because it's run by the same dude, right?
Yeah, Laz. Yeah. So we'll see. That's my plan.
Okay, awesome. Sounds like a good plan. Just real quick on going back to elevation for a second. So you're now living at 6,500 feet, I think Durango is, and obviously, when you were back in Pennsylvania or based there, you were still traveling to places that were at elevation. Like, how have you noticed any kind of changes in your fitness yet, or is it kind of too soon to tell? Has living at elevation affected your appetite, or had any other effects that you've noticed so far?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So I don't know if I'm fitter, but I'm better at running. We actually live at like 7,500 feet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when I run to work, it's 1,000 feet down. It's pretty quick.
Nice.
Yeah. So it took about 6 weeks before, like right before I left for Bighorn, was I finally starting to feel like I could run up a hill and not be like have to stop or something. And like a lot of the running I do behind my house is above 9,000 feet on like Missionary Ridge. And I like also realized I was kind of like, when I noticed I felt slow, I would try to run harder to like make up for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that just makes you not be able to run as long.
Yeah.
So then you have to just kind of walk, and then it's just frustrating. So if like you just realize like I'm going slower, just run and not worry about pace as much, it just started to click. It just takes time too. And you're slower to recover. I haven't had the volume I wanted to have. I don't know. My appetite's not different. I think maybe sometimes when people go to higher altitude, they lose their appetite. I don't know. I think that's just like a temporary side effect.
We were on vacation in Hawaii, and then we flew to Denver, and then we were in Breckenridge. So we were above 10,000 feet at 31 weeks pregnant, and I was like so exhausted, and I was like, this is rough.
Yeah.
But I think I went for like a walk because I'm not running anymore at this point, but I went for just like a walk up the hill and was like winded.
Yeah.
But I've been to Colorado once before, and we did the Steamboat Springs. I think it was like a half marathon or a 15 mile or something. And that was in place of like a 20-mile training run as I was training for Chicago at the time. Mm-hmm. And that was like the hardest race I've ever done. I remember I was running with like buddies of mine from Colorado who, normally I'm faster than them on the road, and they kicked my butt so hard because they live at altitude. I was just like, I just remember running downhill and thinking I should be able to run this, and I had to walk downhill. I'm like, what is going on? This is so tough. But yeah, it's gorgeous, and you have so many amazing trails in your backyard now, so that must be tons of fun.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's like, it's nice to notice like change, where you feel like things are getting easier sometimes. But definitely hydration is noticeable. If I get dehydrated and I try to go run up on Missionary Ridge in the morning or something, I definitely feel like a headache. You feel it more than I guess otherwise.
Yeah. So let's talk tailwind for a second. What are your favorite flavors?
Lemon's been my all-time favorite flavor. I still like lemon. Mm-hmm. My favorite caffeinated flavor is tropical, but now we have the new cola flavor, which is awesome.
It's yummy.
Yeah, I like that right now. So we'll see if that kicks out tropical, or maybe I'll just keep them both around.
Are you?
And I do like naked.
Sorry?
I like the naked flavor too. That's like my other go-to.
That's my go-to. Are you using the recovery powders at all?
Yeah. So the Rebuild Recovery I use after every hard run, like workout or long run. Mm-hmm. And I actually really look forward to it.
It's tasty.
Yeah, it is. And I'll just mix that up and then go shower and do my stuff, or like maybe bring breakfast with me or stuff to snack on. But I usually don't have time, so that's like perfect for me. And I've actually noticed like a difference, especially here. Like I feel like it's so important because recovery is slower at altitude.
Yeah.
I just feel like so much better if I just make sure that I get the Rebuild calories in before. Even if I'm able to make food now, Like if I'm at home, I prefer to just drink Rebuild because I think it's much more efficient just for the recovery. Like it just gets into your bloodstream much faster. You don't have to think about like, oh, maybe this is enough protein and carbs and whatever.
Are you doing one packet? Because
Yeah.
one packet has, I think, only 10 grams of protein. And I know sometimes recommendations, like for recommendations, I'm usually recommending like 15 to 20 grams, but that one's only 10 grams. So are you mixing it with anything else, or are you just mixing it with water and that's it?
Yeah, I mean that's all. You can only absorb, I forget, you probably know the so many grams of protein at once.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other thing is like a lot of the times they'll say 20 grams of protein, but if it's not complete protein, like it's really just getting stored as fuel or flushed out.
Yep.
There's actually 7 grams of complete protein in there because
Oh, okay.
we've added all the amino acids.
Sure.
So it is still that like 4-to-1 ratio. Actually, another great guy for your podcast would be Art, the guy who invented the Rebuild.
Yes.
He loves talking about that stuff. He's great.
Awesome.
He just came to Outer Bike with me.
Nice.
And he's always making these like super mad scientist doctor notes. He's an MD into his like phone. So he's always talking to his phone, like making notes.
That's awesome.
Just like things that he thinks about.
Yeah. I mean, recovery is so crucial. And especially when you're obviously training for these like massive races, or you have a quick turnaround, or you're doing kind of just like high volume and all that stuff. It's super, super important, as you know.
Yeah.
So one last question, what's on the horizon for you? So I guess you have Big's Backyard Ultra coming up, and anything else that that's kind of you're eyeing or you're signed up for?
Yeah, so that's my big race for the year. But I got a couple like local stuff. This Saturday I'm doing the Telluride Mountain Run. It's like 38 miles.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm excited. You go over 12,000 feet twice, 13,000 feet twice, and you run above 13,000 feet for like a mile and a half. And it looks beautiful. You run on these ridge lines around Telluride.
Wow.
And then I'm doing another like super local, really epic run called Imogene Pass. It's 17 miles. You basically run from Telluride to Ouray. It's up and over. And then I'm planning this like epic run around Durango on September 14th. So I had this idea to link together the different trail systems, but there's this actual thing this kid did, and it's a thing, 7 summits in Durango, and you go over the 7 like main biggest hills or mountains around Durango. So I'm going to link, instead of going to each trailhead and going up and down each mountain, I'm just going to link them all together in one big run. And I think it's like 60-ish miles, and maybe I'm going to estimate 12,000 feet of climbing. So I'm not sure, but that's, I'm going to do the 14th as like a training run.
Awesome. Are you doing that by yourself, or are you doing that with company?
I'll do it by myself mostly, but I have 2 coworkers, or like, well, at least one agreed to it. Well, she didn't really agree to it.
You're just like, you're coming.
But maybe they'll help me and like meet me with tailwind on the way or something, because there's not much water.
Yeah.
There was a lot of water in May from like different seasonal streams, but there's not much now. So I'll have to plan water stop.
Ooh, I can't wait to see all your pictures from that adventure. That sounds epic.
Yeah. I don't know how long it'll take, so I don't know. It'll be fun. It'll be a cool little project.
Nice.
My new home.
And you run with your dog too, right? You have a dog named Titus, is that right?
Titus, yeah. He's not going to run this. This is too much.
How long does he run for usually?
The max is like 10 miles. I think that's maybe far for him now. Unless we're walking, then that's fine. He can go a lot longer. But, he gets himself a little burnout by going too fast in the beginning. And he's older. He's like almost 10. But we ran like 5 miles this morning up to there's Mount Baldy, like behind us. It was 53 degrees when I started running. So it's good. It's not like back home where it's like 80 degrees at night, and it's just hot, and that's hard for him.
Yeah.
Dogs can't handle like humidity and heat as well as we can. So
10 miles is pretty impressive though. That's pretty awesome. That's a good run.
Yeah. I try not to do that too much with him, but yeah, he gets, I think a 3 to 6 is a good range for him.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, so let's close out with what I call my quick bite questions. So we'll just kind of go through these quickly. So favorite meal or snack when in a hurry?
Peanut butter.
Right out of the jar, right? With a spoon.
Yeah.
Favorite meal or snack when not in a hurry?
Peanut butter? No. I don't know. Hummus.
When you're not in a hurry, you eat hummus?
I guess that's in a hurry. Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
What do you like to cook?
Let's see. Anything from Shalane Flanagan's cookbook.
Oh, yeah. I love that book.
I mean, if you just follow the instructions, it comes out pretty good.
Yeah. I always make those. I basically have those superhero muffins in my freezer at all times. They're so yummy.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. And that like slow cooked pulled chicken, like in the crock pot.
Yep.
Because I have a second one. I don't know about the first.
Oh, yeah. No, I have the Run Fast, Eat Slow. The muffins are great. And I think she has like a ginger molasses granola that I love.
Nice. Yeah.
Because it really, especially when you're training at high volumes, you really need to get energy in. And granola is such a great thing to have in there, especially if it's homemade.
Yeah.
Favorite pre and post race meal? I guess we didn't really talk too much about your pre-race nutrition. I forgot to ask.
Yeah, it's pretty simple: oatmeal and peanut butter and a banana and mixed in.
Mm-hmm. And what about post-race?
Rebuild, recovery. It's like, I really do look forward to it.
What about a meal?
Meal is like probably something with salmon or sushi or something.
Oh, very healthy. Biggest cooking catastrophe?
I don't know if it involved, I made these black bean brownies once that my boyfriend said was disgusting, and I thought they were okay.
I've made chickpea and also chickpea blondies and black bean brownies, and they actually were quite tasty.
That sounds good.
Yeah, you just don't want to eat those too close to running. How do you like your eggs cooked?
Over easy.
Do you eat ice cream? If so, what's your favorite flavor?
I do. Cookies and cream probably, or anything with peanut butter in it.
Yeah, well, I definitely know that you love peanut butter. So if I ever send you a gift, I know it'll be sending you. And I know you don't drink. Are there any non-alcoholic beverages that you enjoy aside from water?
Yes.
And Tailwind, of course.
Polar seltzer, but I can't get Polar here a lot. They really only have it with the one store. So I've been hoarding Topo Chico.
Nice. And which carbs can you not live without?
Pizza and pancakes.
Yum. What's your favorite kind?
Man, I just had the best pizza of my entire life at Secret Stash in Crested Butte. And they had a pizza called Where's the Beef? And it was like a vegetarian pizza. It was amazing.
Awesome. And last but not least, top 3 items of gear that are most essential to your active lifestyle.
I think my phone's pretty important because I use the GPS with the trail thing. So when you feel pretty comfortable just going wherever and you can like figure out a route. And then I usually always carry a hydration vest now. I've been using my Vapor Mag Nathan 2.5 liter or the Vapor How. Was it 4 liter or something? I forget. Just because like I have to carry more water, everything takes longer, and I need to carry a phone. And then I've tried different shoes, but I always come back to the Lone Peak, Ultra Lone Peaks. Yeah, those are like my go-to shoe. You gotta have shoes.
Yeah, shoes are important to running on trails.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, Maggie. And if people want to follow you and follow on your adventures, where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram mostly at Maggatron Runs, and my blog site, which I have not updated it since like last Barkley, is Maggatron.com. So it's probably not that exciting to go to unless you want to read about races from years ago.
Okay. Well, definitely lots of really exciting stuff and upcoming for you, and best of luck at Bigs. I hope you reach that 200-mile goal.
Yeah, I hope I go a lot more than that too.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Maggie. Have a good one.
Thanks, Claire. You too.
I hope you all enjoyed my chat with Maggie. Again, you can find her on Instagram as Maggatron Runs to follow all of her adventures. We'll definitely be cheering for you at Big's Backyard Ultra, and I really hope that you get above 200 miles and win that race, Maggie. So that's all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the chat, and I look forward to next time.